In the heart of modern Illinois lies the ghost of a city that was once larger than medieval London, a place of towering pyramids, sacred plazas, and tens of thousands of people who simply vanished. Today, it's a quiet field of grass and mounds, but was Cahokia the capital of a forgotten American empire, erased from history? Imagine standing on a flat, grassy plain just outside St. Louis. To most, it looks like farmland, interrupted only by gentle hills that seem natural at first glance. But they are not hills. They are the remains of colossal man-made mounds, silent witnesses to one of the greatest civilizations North America ever knew, and then lost. Cahokia. At its height around the year 1050, this city was a sprawling metropolis with an estimated 20 to 40,000 people, larger than London, larger than Paris. It stretched across nearly 6 square miles, filled with wooden temples, thatched houses, defensive palisades, and broad plazas. At the center stood Monk's Mound, a pyramid of earth more massive than the Great Pyramid of Giza by volume. From its top, a ruler or priest could oversee the lives of thousands below. The sheer scale of it defies belief, and yet it stood here, in the heart of America, centuries before Europeans ever set foot on these lands. The mystery isn't just in the size of Cahokia. It lies in its sudden rise, and in its even more sudden fall. According to mainstream history, advanced civilizations with large populations and monumental architecture were thought to be limited to Mesoamerica, the Aztecs, the Maya. Yet here, in the middle of the Mississippi Valley, a parallel culture had built something astonishing, with no written records, no stone temples, and no apparent connection to their southern neighbors. Cahokia seemed to appear out of nowhere around the year 1000. Within just a few decades, its population exploded, suggesting migration, conquest, or perhaps something even stranger. Archaeologists have found evidence of far-reaching trade: seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, copper from the Great Lakes, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains. Cahokia was not isolated. It was connected, pulsing at the center of a vast network that stretched across the continent. And yet, despite its importance, almost nothing is remembered of it today. Excavations reveal layers of mystery beneath the soil, pits filled with broken pottery, ritual deposits, remains of human sacrifice, young women buried at the base of mounds, perhaps offerings to gods whose names we will never know. Just west of Monk's Mound lies a strange construction, a great circle of cedar posts known as woodhenge, aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. It suggests that the people of Cahokia tracked the movements of the sun, structuring their lives by cosmic patterns, much like the builders of Stonehenge across the Atlantic or the Maya astronomers far to the south. But how did a society with no writing, no beasts of burden, and only simple tools coordinate such precision? And why here, at the confluence of the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers, a place prone to flooding but also a natural crossroads of trade and power? By the 1300s, the city was dying. The mounds were abandoned, the plazas emptied, the wooden palisades rotted away. Within decades, the city that had once dominated the Mississippi Valley was gone. Historians offer theories. Climate shifts brought devastating droughts. Overpopulation and resource depletion strained the land. Disease, carried along trade routes, may have swept through the crowded city. Internal conflict or warfare could have torn the society apart. Yet no single answer explains the scale of Cahokia's collapse. Unlike Rome, Cahokia left no chronicles, no letters, no legends carved in stone, only mounds of earth, mute and enigmatic, hiding the final chapter of its story. Today, Monk's Mound still towers nearly 100 feet high, covering 14 acres. From its summit, you can gaze across the fields and imagine the bustling city that once thrived there. Thousands of families in their homes, priests chanting in plazas, merchants trading goods from faraway lands, rulers gazing down from above. The silence of the present hides the echoes of a metropolis that rivaled the great cities of the old world. But here is where the mystery deepens. If Cahokia was this advanced, why is it almost absent from Native American oral histories? Did survivors scatter and blend into other tribes, erasing the memory of their great city? Or was Cahokia deliberately forgotten, its downfall too tragic or too cursed to be remembered? Archaeologists whisper about something else, that Cahokia rose too quickly, expanded too fast, as if guided by forces beyond simple human migration. Was it inspired by contact with other lost civilizations? Or was it an independent spark of genius that burned too brightly, consuming itself before its legacy could take root? Standing there today, amid the quiet hum of insects and the whisper of wind over grass, it is almost impossible to believe this was once the largest city north of Mexico. The soil remembers, the mounds endure, but the people are gone. Cahokia is a reminder that history is not a straight line. Civilizations rise and fall, sometimes without leaving a trace. And here, in the center of America, a forgotten pyramid city still asks its unanswered question. How does a world-class civilization simply vanish, leaving behind nothing but earth and silence? High in the cliffs of the American Southwest, entire stone cities still cling to the rock faces. Homes, temples, and roads, perfectly preserved. But the people who built them are gone. No mass graves, no signs of war, only silence. Who were the ancestral Puebloans, and why did they abandon their world? In the deserts of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, the Red Rock Canyons conceal one of the strangest mysteries in American history. Perched, high on cliffs, tucked into sheer walls, and hidden deep within valleys are sprawling stone dwellings carved and stacked by a people once known as the Anasazi, now respectfully referred to as the Ancestral Puebloans. Their cities defy the elements, standing centuries after their builders disappeared. Their sandstone walls glowing with the warmth of the desert sun, whispering of a life we can only imagine. These people were master architects. At Mesa Verde, entire villages cling to the cliffs, intricate structures of multiple stories, hundreds of rooms, and plazas carefully placed in natural alcoves. In Chaco Canyon, they left behind colossal great houses, some containing over 600 rooms, aligned with the sun and stars. Pathways radiated from these hubs like spokes of a wheel, connecting communities across hundreds of miles. Their world was not small or isolated. It was vast, sophisticated, and deeply connected to the rhythms of the cosmos. And yet, around the late 1200s, something happened. The people abandoned their cliff dwellings and canyon cities almost overnight. Tools were left behind. Homes stood empty. The networks that once tied this civilization together unraveled. By the time Spanish explorers arrived centuries later, the great stone cities were already ruins, their inhabitants long gone. Why? Archaeologists have searched for answers in the dust and stone. The simplest explanation points to the climate. Records from tree rings suggest a great drought struck the region in the late 1200s, lasting nearly half a century. For a people dependent on maize farming, this would have been devastating. Crops failed, rivers ran dry, and the once thriving cities became impossible to sustain. Starvation alone, some argue, may have driven the Puebloans to leave, but the story feels incomplete. Other evidence suggests conflict. Some sites show signs of hastily built defensive walls, burned structures, even scattered remains hinting at violence. As resources dwindled, perhaps neighbors turned against each other, villages fighting for survival. Yet there are no great battlefields, no records of conquest, no clear victor, only fragments of turmoil etched into the ruins. And then there are the spiritual clues. The ancestral Puebloans left behind kivas, underground ceremonial chambers where rituals connected them to their gods, the sun, the rain, the earth itself. The alignments of their great houses, oriented to solstices and equinoxes, suggest a worldview deeply tied to cosmic order. Some researchers believe the sudden abandonment of their cities may not have been mere survival, but part of a religious migration. Perhaps they believed they were called elsewhere, that the land itself had grown hostile, cursed, or barren, and that their destiny required them to move on. Even today, their descendants, the modern Hopi, Zuni, and Pueblo peoples, carry oral traditions that speak of migrations, journeys, and the search for new homes. But their stories are veiled in symbolism, layered with meaning not easily understood by outsiders. They honor their ancestors by keeping the secrets close, leaving us to wonder what truly happened in those final days. The silence of the ruins is haunting. Imagine walking through Mesa Verde. You step into a room carved into the stone, its walls blackened by centuries of fires. The niches where tools once hung are empty. The grinding stones where maize was crushed are still there, but unused. The ladders that once climbed into kivas are gone, their entrances sealed with earth. It is as though the inhabitants simply walked away, leaving behind the skeleton of a civilization. Some speculate that the disappearance was not sudden, but gradual. Families may have left one by one, seeking water and fertile ground elsewhere, until the once thriving communities dwindled to nothing. Yet the scale of the abandonment, across multiple regions, all within a narrow window of time, hints at something larger, a shared catastrophe or command. Others whisper of more enigmatic theories. The perfect astronomical alignments of Chaco Canyon's buildings suggest knowledge beyond simple observation. The sheer effort required to construct such massive stone complexes raises questions about how they organized labor without beasts of burden, wheels, or metal tools. Did they possess knowledge now lost? Did they follow celestial patterns that foretold disaster, prompting them to leave before something greater struck? And then there is the land itself. The Southwest is filled with strange natural phenomena, sudden storms, shifting sands, echoes that roll endlessly through the canyons. Some believe the Puebloans saw the land as alive, speaking to them, warning them. When the balance was broken, whether through drought, famine, or spiritual disharmony, they may have believed the only solution was departure. Centuries later, their stone dwellings remain, suspended between earth and sky, enduring while their people moved on. Modern Pueblo descendants insist their ancestors did not vanish. They transformed, they migrated, they became part of new communities. But to the outside world, the sight of abandoned cliff cities and empty canyons tells a different story, one of sudden loss, of a mystery frozen in stone. Standing beneath the shadow of Mesa Verde's cliff palace, the largest of the surviving dwellings, you can almost hear the echoes of laughter, the rhythm of grinding stones, the chants from sacred ceremonies. The walls are intact, the plazas still defined, But no smoke rises from the hearths, only silence. The desert holds its breath, keeping the secrets of those who once thrived here. The story of the ancestral Puebloans reminds us that civilizations do not always end with fire and conquest. Sometimes they slip away quietly, leaving behind questions that will never be fully answered. Were they defeated by nature, torn apart by conflict, or guided by beliefs we cannot comprehend? Perhaps all three. Perhaps something more. And so across the deserts of the American Southwest, their ghost cities endure, etched into the cliffs, preserved by the arid air, untouched by time. They stand as a riddle carved into stone, asking again and again, how can a people so skilled, so connected to the earth and sky, vanish, leaving behind only empty rooms and silent walls? In the barren deserts of California, etched into the earth on a colossal scale, lie figures so massive they can only be truly seen from the sky. Giants stretching hundreds of feet across, carved into the desert floor centuries ago, yet invisible to the very people who walked upon them. Who made the blithe intaglios, and why did they draw messages no one on the ground could ever fully see? The Mojave Desert is a place of extremes. Vast, arid plains stretch endlessly under a blazing sun. The winds howl, carrying sand across a landscape that has swallowed entire civilizations. It is here, just outside the small town of Blythe near the Colorado River, that one of North America's greatest enigmas lies hidden in plain sight. From the ground, it looks like nothing more than shallow depressions in the desert crust. But from the air, the images emerge. Giant geoglyphs carved into the desert floor, some longer than a football field. Discovered by modern eyes only in 1932 when a pilot named George Palmer flew overhead, the blithe intaglios stunned the world. There are 6 massive figures etched into the earth, created by scraping away the dark desert pavement to reveal lighter soil beneath. 3 are human shapes, arms outstretched, elongated, their forms stretching up to 170 feet. 2 depict animals, one thought to be a mountain lion, another perhaps a horse or coyote. A final figure is abstract, its meaning obscured. Together they form one of the most mysterious works of ancient art in North America. What strikes immediately is scale. These are not patterns meant to be walked through like labyrinths, nor simple markings visible to passers-by. The only way to comprehend their shape is from high above. Imagine the mind that conceived them, a vision so vast it could only be seen from the heavens. The creators would have had no way to climb into the sky, no balloons, no airplanes, nothing to reveal the full picture. And yet they drew with precision. Who made them? Archaeologists estimate they may be between 450 and 2,000 years old, based on dating of the desert varnish and oral traditions from nearby tribes. The Mojave and Quechan peoples claim the geoglyphs as part of their cultural heritage, linking them to sacred stories. Some believe the human figures represent Mastamho, a creator deity from Mojave mythology, who brought order to the world and taught people how to live. Others see them as part of ceremonial dances, perhaps created as offerings to the gods or markers for spiritual gatherings. But the scale raises unsettling questions. Why create figures so enormous that no one could see them in full from the ground? If they were messages, who were they meant for? The gods, the spirits, or something beyond the human world? The mystery deepens when one compares them to other geoglyphs around the world. In Peru, the famous Nazca lines also stretch across the desert, depicting animals and shapes visible only from the sky. In England, The Uffington White Horse is carved into chalk hills, a massive figure recognizable from afar. The Blythe intaglios join this strange global tradition, enormous earthworks whose true form can only be grasped from above. Were ancient people across the world connected by some shared impulse to draw messages for the heavens? Or did they witness something in the skies that compelled them to inscribe the earth with symbols? The desert preserves secrets well. Unlike stone ruins, which can be looted or destroyed, the Blythe intaglios survive because the land itself guards them. Any attempt to alter or trample them risks immediate erasure. The figures exist in fragile balance, carved not deep but shallow, their presence visible only in contrast between dark stone and pale soil. They are fragile giants, surviving centuries of wind and sun, yet always on the edge of disappearance. Their placement near the Colorado River suggests another layer of meaning. This waterway has always been the lifeblood of the desert, drawing tribes for settlement, trade, and ceremony. Perhaps the figures were made to honor the river's spirit, asking for fertility, protection, or abundance. Some anthropologists argue they may have been ceremonial sites, with rituals performed around the massive forms as offerings to the gods above. To dance beneath the outstretched arms of a giant figure carved into the earth must have felt like standing within the embrace of the divine. But the questions will not rest. The figure's visibility from above remains the greatest puzzle. No one walking across the desert would understand their scale, their proportions, their meaning as complete forms. It is as though they were drawn for an audience that could fly, or one that descended from the skies. This is where speculation turns toward the unsettling. Ancient astronaut theorists point to the striking similarities between the Blythe intaglios and the Nazca lines. Both require a vantage point above ground to fully appreciate. Both are located in arid deserts where preservation could endure across centuries. Both are mysterious in origin, their exact purpose still debated. Could they have been landing markers, signals, or messages for beings not of this earth? Were the desert floors once canvases for communication with something greater? Skeptics dismiss such theories, arguing that the figures need not have been seen in full to hold meaning. The act of creation itself, the communal scraping of soil, the ritual movement across the land, could have been sacred. Participants, it may not have mattered whether the figure was visible from above. The knowledge that they had carved symbols of their gods into the earth was enough. Rituals are not always about visibility. Sometimes they are about devotion, sacrifice, and connection. And yet, the enigma remains. The creators were precise. The figures are not crude or accidental. They are carefully proportioned, their outlines deliberate. Someone imagined them whole, saw them in their mind, and directed their creation. But how could they be so exact without ever seeing the full image? The desert offers no answers, only silence. The sun sets over the Mojave, casting long shadows across the flat plains. The figures stretch out, invisible to those walking among them. But from the sky they come alive, giants etched into the earth, arms open as though greeting or warning. To this day, few people visit the Blythe intaglios. They lie off lonely desert roads, fenced to protect them, largely forgotten by the world. And yet they endure, whispering across centuries. Their mystery is not only in what they depict, but in why they exist at all. Were they prayers, warnings, messages for the gods, or for something far beyond our understanding? Standing in the Mojave, you feel the weight of emptiness. The desert is eternal, unchanging. Yet these figures prove that long ago, Someone looked at this harsh land and imagined something vast. They saw beyond survival, beyond the daily struggle for water and food. They looked to the heavens, to the unseen, and carved into the very skin of the earth an act of communication. With whom? That is the question that lingers. Perhaps the figures were never meant for us. Perhaps they were conversations between the earth and the sky, using the desert as a canvas. Or perhaps they were left for us to find centuries later, a message whose meaning has slipped away, leaving only questions. And so, the blithe intaglios remain one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Vast, silent, and enduring. Giants who lie upon the desert floor, visible only to those who rise above. Whispering of a forgotten purpose, an ancient conversation, and a question humanity has asked since the beginning. Who were we speaking to when we carved our gods into the earth? Across the vast expanse of the United States, these stories remind us of something unsettling yet beautiful. Beneath the highways, towns, and quiet landscapes we know today, there are traces of civilizations far older than the nation itself. At Cahokia, the echoes of a forgotten city rise from the Illinois plains, a society larger than London in its day, yet swallowed by silence. In the cliffs of the Southwest, entire communities carved their lives into stone, only to walk away without explanation, leaving ghostly villages suspended in time. And out in the desert, where the earth is scorched and still, giants stretch across the soil, figures so massive they can only be read by the sky. Each mystery whispers of a past that does not fit neatly into the history books. These were not scattered, primitive tribes living in isolation, as old stereotypes once claimed. They were builders, astronomers, artists, visionaries. They raised monuments, aligned their structures to the stars, carved symbols across the land, and vanished, leaving us to wonder what truths slipped away with them. What is most haunting is not just the loss of their cities, but the loss of their voices. We can walk their ruins, measure their mounds, study their artifacts, but we cannot hear their stories in their own words. Why did they rise? Why did they fall? And did they know something about the cycles of the world that we have forgotten? Perhaps the answers are still hidden beneath the soil, waiting to be uncovered. Or perhaps they are beyond us, secrets meant to remain in silence, forcing us to look not for certainty, but for wonder. Because sometimes the greatest gift of a mystery is not the solution, but the reminder that the world is far stranger and far older than we think. And so the question lingers: how many more forgotten civilizations lie buried beneath our feet, waiting for the day when the earth itself decides to reveal them?